Welcome to Extreme Sandbox. We're excited to kick off your 20-week operator training program.
20 minutes.
20 minutes? There's no way. That's ridiculous. Welcome to Extreme Sandbox. We're excited to kick off your 20-minute operator training program. First and foremost, we are excited to be powered by Komatsu equipment. Together, we've been able to transform these impressive marvels of engineering technology from a roadside and work zone curiosity into an informative, exciting, hands-on experience. Safety is priority at Extreme Sandbox. Now, I want to congratulate all of you. You're all safety officers here at Extreme Sandbox. Now, don't get too excited. The pay is horrible, you work long hours, and your boss is kind of a jerk. But what I mean by that is we're all out here for each other's safety. So if at any time you see anything that doesn't look right, please feel free to speak up. Next, safety vests. All of our operators will be wearing safety vests. Our instructors usually wearing bright orange shirts. And then for any spectators that want safety vests, they're absolutely allowed to have one as well. Next is communications. We use a fully duplex intercom system. It's completely hands-free, very simple to operate. Now initially on these things, when you swivel the headset down, you'll basically grab this hard plastic piece at the base. Do not yank on these wires at all that are holding the mics out there. And then on there you have volume control. You're up and down there, and then finally you've got a little button that says MIC. That is your microphone to turn it on or off. Now as an operator, it's going to be on the entire time. You will never touch these buttons at all. However, for spectators and for your instructors, we may mute our mics at times. Obviously for spectators, we usually ask them to keep it off, just so we don't hear and it's not a distraction on the sidelines with everyone talking. Now for an instructor, we may legitimately turn off our mic during the instruction. Usually that's so we can talk bad about you behind your back. Okay, maybe not. But what it may mean is if we're talking to another instructor or someone else out there, we may mute our mic so we don't distract you. Just understand that we can always hear you. So we will always be there for you regardless. Finally, on these headsets, pretty simple adjustments to make them smaller. If you need, there's smaller, larger, just ask your instructor if you need any help making adjustments to this. Next is commands. We use very simple commands out here. Usually all your instructions are going to be talking right hand back, left hand forward, left hand left, things like that. Now, there are two commands we do want you to memorize though. One is hands off. Now, hands off is a command we would use, and basically you're just going to hold your hands up off the controls, keep them up there the entire time so we can see your hands up. This would be used in situations where the instructor may need to come in and reset an obstacle or something like that, and we don't want to get squished by a 26-ton excavator. Once we come in there, we'll reset something, we'll back off, we'll be like, okay, you can relax. The next command is stop, stop. If you hear us say stop, stop, it just means stop what you're doing. We can use it in a variety of settings. If it transitions into stop, 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 as we're running away from you, that is a bad sign and definitely not something we want to see. Our final safety device is your instructors wear a remote engine cutoff switch. This is where if you were to come after your instructor, this is where we shut off the equipment, finish that game. Now, however, if you were to go after your spouse or loved one, for a certain price, we can make this disappear. Next piece of safety is 3 points of contact. Every time you get in or out of our equipment, make sure you maintain 3 points of contact. So that can be 2 hands and 1 foot or 2 feet and 1 hand. An interesting little job site fact is most accidents don't actually happen from operating it. They actually happen from getting in and out of the equipment, just because the equipment can be awkward. That's especially true at Extreme Sandbox when everyone's so excited, they just want to get in and play, they don't take their time. And next thing you know, we have someone slipping and falling. Other thing to keep in mind is some of our equipment, depending on the site, may have snow, mud, ice, different elements. So understand it may be slippery, so take your time. The final piece, do not ever get in or out of any of our equipment on your own without an instructor present. An instructor will always be there with you. So at the end of your experience, you'll park it, you will wait right there, and the instructor will come to get you out. The final piece of safety advice is just listen. Follow your instructor's commands and you're going to have a blast. Next, spectator areas. Now most likely you brought family, friends, coworkers out with you to watch all the action, and we definitely encourage that. Our best viewing areas usually have a tent over the center of them. And then with our barricades, fencing, whatever we have out there, we just ask you not to climb on it or sit on top of it. Definitely do not cross those barricades at any point during the experience. At the very end, when we park the equipment, that's when we'll invite any family and friends out so they can get close-up photos and interact with you out there. The final piece before we get into your specific equipment is just general hydraulic operations. All of our equipment is hydraulic operated, and what we like to let people know is slow and steady is your best friend out here. As hard as you move one of these joysticks, that's how hard the machine's gonna move. So we always tell people nice and slow and steady. You want to avoid stabbing or jerking the joysticks. You'll end up seeing the whole machine shaking around for people that are kind of stabbing, so slow, steady motion is going to be your best friend out here. And now let's go over the equipment you'll be operating today. Now let's go over the Komatsu wheel loader that you'll be operating. We use the WA270 model or similar size. They're about 15-ton units, so they are extremely heavy. Now a wheel loader is used on a job site usually just to move material around, loaded into dump trucks, etc. Now you'll notice on a wheel loader, for steering, they are articulated. The wheels in the front don't actually turn like in your car. The entire machine will pivot. Finally, you've got four-wheel drive on these things. It's always on, it's an auto traction control. The only thing we tell you is when you drive into dirt to take scoops, if you start to see your wheels start spinning a little bit, jumping, or the whole machine's hopping, let your foot off the gas. You don't just want to hold the foot down and let it keep trying to bite in there if you're already kind of stuck. Next is your boom and bucket controls. Now the bucket does have an auto level feature, so when you're pulling back or bringing it back down, the bucket will generally maintain that same angle. Now when you are up high, if you were to curl that bucket all the way in, there is potential that you could actually spill material over the back end of the bucket, so you want to be careful on curling the bucket in. Now when we get you to start taking scoops out of the pile, there's one main point we want to show you. On the top corner of the blade, you will see a matching colored segment on the top of the bucket. It's usually red, yellow, it can be a different color that your instructor will point out. That indicates your blade angle. When you're sitting all the way up in the cab, you can't actually see the front blade of the wheel loader. So you need the top of the bucket to understand the orientation. You want those lines to be generally horizontal, so you're going straight in there. If it was angled all the way down or all the way up, you obviously are not going to get a very good scoop. After you go on there, you'll scoop it all the way up, you're going to curl that bucket. Generally, you want to have the bucket curled all the way in, and then to move it, you want to have it low and tight. That's generally below your window. The only time you should be up above your cab with a fully loaded bucket of dirt is when you're moving forward slowly to dump it. We should never see you maneuvering around the site at all with your bucket way up in the sky, because that's where you're very top heavy and the machine is less stable. Driving and parking position, two different pieces. Driving, just curl it all the way up. You usually want it about a foot or two above the ground. The best indicator for you is you want this right below your window. Just make sure it's not up higher so you can't see. You also don't want it all the way to the ground, otherwise you're going to be dragging that thing while you're driving. For parking position, relatively simple. Just going to set the boom on the ground, flatten the blade so that blade is touching the ground, and that's parking position. Okay, now let's look inside the cab of the equipment. First and foremost, the safety pieces for this equipment. Now before you get in there, we like to let people know the steering wheel on a wheel loader is live when the equipment is running, even with the parking brake on. So when you do climb up there, be careful not to bump the steering wheel because the entire machine will articulate. You'll use your 3 points of contact to get up. There's a ladder there, so 2 hands, 1 foot, 2 feet, 1 hand all the way up. You'll have a seat, you're gonna put your seat belt on. Next is your parking brakes. There's really 2 red switches in this machine. On the dash over on the right, you'll see a red switch and you'll see a red parking indicator on the display. That's the overall parking brake for the machine not to move. So you want to make sure that's on, and you will not touch that until the instructor lets you know. The second piece is another red switch, so we call a parking brake. It's really a joystick lockout. Over to the right of the joystick, you're going to see a little red switch over there, and that basically locks out the controls on the joystick. Your instructor will go over that with you, and do not disengage that until your instructor tells you to. Next, for seat adjustments, there's a grab bar right in the very front that'll slide the seat forward and back. Below that, you have an air ride control. All of our equipment has air ride seats, so you can adjust it up or down. And then you have a backrest adjustment. Over on the back corner, that'll actually tilt the seat back or forward. And then the final piece is your steering column adjustment. If you need to move the steering wheel closer or farther, just like in your car, there's a little lever on the side there. That'll bring that in closer or farther to you. Now for your foot controls in the wheel loader. Now you'll see 3 pedals down there. There's 2 brake pedals on both sides of the steering wheel. These are connected, just like in your car, except you have an extra one over on the left. And then you've got your gas pedal on the right. Now we like to instruct people to use it just like your car. It's really just use your right foot. You're either going to be on the accelerator or the brake, one or the other. Now if you want to try using your left foot on the brake as well, that's fine, but usually we're going to focus on just instructing with your right foot. Now for the steering wheel. Now you'll notice on the steering wheel there is a little turning knob on there. That's usually what you want to use in a wheel loader, just because this steering wheel will actually articulate. It turns about 4 times. So it's very difficult to hold the steering wheel like the standard 10 and 2 like you would in a car. So use the steering knob to go 4 one way and you can go 4 the other way. Again, it'll articulate the entire machine one way or the other. Then the next piece is the shifter. On the left side of the steering column, you're gonna see a little, it looks like a turn signal. It's forward, neutral, reverse. There's gonna be 3 clicks there. You will see a dial, it'll have a speed setting on there. We're always gonna stay in the number 2, so you don't ever wanna touch that adjustment at all. It should stay on 2. And then next, your joystick. Now again, that joystick will operate the boom and bucket. If you pull back on that right joystick, it's gonna raise the boom up. If you push forward, it's gonna bring the boom down. If you go to the right, it's going to open the bucket. And if you go to the left, it's going to close the bucket. And then in the wheel loader, you've got your mirrors, and it actually has a backup camera. You'll see a screen over on your right. That's what you're gonna end up using mostly to back up, although it is good to look over your shoulder. And then you also have mirrors, so feel free to use those. And then finally, you've got your climate control. All of our equipment's fully climate controlled, so you'll see a blue panel there and an auto temperature setting on your dash. Feel free to adjust that up or down so you're comfortable. That's it for your Komatsu wheel loader. Okay, now let's go over our Komatsu bulldozer you'll be operating. Now we use a D61 or similar size model. It's about a 20-ton unit. Now bulldozers on job sites are usually used for cleanup duty. They're the ones that are gonna come in and put everything back to grade and clean it up. Now the bulldozer is a tracked vehicle, and that basically means one track's either going forward or reverse. And you can actually have one track going forward, one going reverse, and the machine will actually do a 360. But that's how you steer and drive a bulldozer. The blade on a dozer is a 6-way pitch blade. And what that basically means, the blade will go up, the blade can come down, and then you can dip both corners down. And then you can also swivel both ways. So this will adjust the blade. There's 6 different motions you can do on that blade. Now for driving and parking position with the bulldozer, it's fairly simple. We just pull it up so it's about a foot or 2 above the ground when we're driving. And then to park it, we always want that blade touching the ground, mainly because there's a step on the back of that blade that you're actually going to use to get in or out of it. Now let's look inside the bulldozer. Now first and foremost, for safety devices on the bulldozer, you want to maintain 3 points of contact getting up and in this thing. Now to climb into a bulldozer, you'll see a little step behind the blade. You're going to want to step there, and then there are handlebars all the way up on the side of the machine. You're going to walk right up on the tracks. Again, take your time. These things can be awkward to step on, so you're going to maintain that 3 points of contact. You're going to go into the cab, you're going to have a seat, and put your seatbelt on. That's always the first thing we put on. Now, a parking brake for the bulldozer actually has safety lock levers. So next to each door, there is a little bar with a red tip on it. Those are the lockout levers for this machine. Now, eventually what you'll do is pull those things up, and that'll engage all the controls. But with those things down, everything's safe, nothing's gonna move in that machine. The final safety piece in the bulldozer is the decelerator pedal. So you'll see one pedal, you're gonna use your right foot on. That's basically gonna stop that machine. What it does, it brings the engine down to idle and again stops you. So at any point doing anything out in the site, right foot to the floor is a good thing. Now for seat adjustments, there is a lever on the right side that'll basically slide the seat forward or back. And then you've got an air ride adjustment right in front of you that you can basically raise or lower the seat. And then you've got a tilt lever as well up there that'll tilt the seat forward or back. And then finally, you've got a backrest adjustment on the side that can adjust that as well. Now the throttle in the bulldozer over on the left, you're gonna see a dial. It's got a min and a max. We're gonna turn that all the way up eventually when your instructor tells you to. Next, we went over the foot controls a little. You're gonna have 2 stationary pedals there just to basically rest your feet. And then you're gonna have that decelerator pedal. Again, the decelerator pedal, when you put your foot down, it brings the engine down to idle. That is what's going to stop you. Next are your joysticks. Now your left is your driving, right is your blade control. Now with your left one, it's pretty simple. You click it forward, forward gear, one click back, neutral, one more click back is reverse. There are 3 clicks there that you're gonna be able to feel. And then to turn it is just left or right with that joystick. As hard as you go one way or the other, that's how hard the machine will turn. This thing will, again, do a 360 if you hold it all the way over. Now, your 2 buttons, you've got speed control on that left joystick. You've got an up and a down button. That's how you're gonna adjust your speed settings up or down. So for controlling the speed on the bulldozer, you'll see a digital display in front of you. It's got an F and an R with a bar chart and then 1, 2, and 3 in the center. It's a variable speed setting. On those buttons on your left joystick, if you push up, it's going to make you go faster. The bar will get bigger. And if you push down, it'll make you go slower. Again, it is variable, so it'll go in little increments up or down. When you put that into reverse, you will see that center display will actually turn into a backup camera. So that'll help you in backing, but you'll also see your speed setting moves up to your top right corner, so you'll still be able to see your reverse speed setting while the camera's on. Now let's go over to our right hand and our blade control. If you pull back on that right joystick, it's gonna raise the blade up in the air. If you push right hand forward, it's gonna bring the blade back down. If you go to the left with the right joystick, it'll tip the left tip down. If you go to the right with that right joystick, it'll tip the right blade down. And then finally, you've got the swivel. There's a little toggle button there with your right thumb that you'll be able to swivel the blade left or right. The final piece is dumping the blade. When you're up on the hill and you have a full load of dirt, there may be points where you actually need to push that blade all the way forward, and then you can actually try and shake it a little bit by going back and forth with that right hand. Sometimes that'll shake some of the material off the blade. Finally is your climate control. Over in your back left corner, you're gonna see a manual climate control on this thing. There's a fan speed and then the dial with the red and the blue. Feel free to adjust it to whatever's comfortable for you. One of the activities you're gonna do in the bulldozer, we're gonna build a big old takeoff mound. We're gonna go up and over that. Now, when you get to that point, you're gonna get up to the top there. A couple things your instructor is gonna have you do. First, he's gonna have you pick your blade all the way up. So you're gonna pull right hand back, raise that blade all the way up in the sky. Then you're gonna take your right hand off that joystick and you're gonna put it on the handlebar that's right above that. That way you're holding on to something when you're coming up and over it. Next, you're gonna set your speed as low as it'll go. You're gonna go all the way down, so you got 2 little tick marks on that speed. Then your instructor's gonna have you start going up and over that thing. He's gonna stop you at the very top. This is where you can kind of feather your right foot pedal to stop and try and balance yourself at the peak of this. Now at the peak, your tracks are gonna be all the way off the ground there. You're gonna be looking up into the sky. You're gonna look and feel like you're gonna flip this thing over. Now the good news for you, there's only a 1 in 3 chance of the machine flipping over and exploding on impact. 1 in 3, that's a really good shot. No worries, you're gonna have a blast. So eventually your instructor's gonna let you have your foot, keep taking it off. You're gonna have that front end come all the way down. After you come over it, he'll probably have you back over it, okay? The key is slow and steady on that. Keep your foot near that pedal and you're gonna have a blast. And that's it for the Komatsu Bulldozer. Now let's go over the Komatsu excavator you'll be using. We use a PC210 or similar sized unit. They're about 26-ton excavators, so by far the largest piece we have on site. Now an excavator on a job site, they're used in various ways. They really are the workhorse of the industry. Generally, they're gonna use to dig up the site and place anything. Now the excavators are tracked, and what that means is one track goes forward, one goes reverse. That's as simple as it's gonna drive, is you can push them both forward to go forward, pull back on both to go reverse, or you can go one opposite of each other and it'll literally do a 360. Now when we start driving, we always start slowly on our track paddle just to make sure it goes the direction we want. Because as much as forward may be one direction, if you were to swivel that cab and be facing the other direction and do that exact same motion, you would actually be going backwards. That's why we always want you to start slow to make sure you know which way your tracks are lined up. Now for the main pieces on the excavator, the digging arm consists of the boom, stick, and bucket. The final piece we add in there is the swing. So boom, stick, bucket, swing. Now for digging with the excavator, generally we're gonna line you up straight over your tracks. This is where you're very stable and the weight is spread out the best. Now you can dig off the side when you're perpendicular to your tracks, but what you're gonna find, the machine's a lot less stable and you may feel the back of the machine pick up a little bit. So as much as possible, we're gonna line you up straight over your tracks to dig. Now while you're digging, it is normal at certain points to feel the back of the machine lift up, or even the front of the machine might pick up. Now again, the machine's powerful enough where you may feel that. In general, you want to try and keep your tracks flat. So if you feel the back end picking up or the front is lifting off, we're going to want to stabilize ourselves by lowering or picking up the boom. Now when we get ready to dig, we're going to extend that arm all the way out. We're going to lower the bucket. We're going to stop about a foot above the ground. Then we need to open our teeth. You're going to open the teeth. You either want those teeth straight down to even out just a little bit. Then we're going to engage the ground. Again, when we start digging, we're going to be fully extended. We're going to try and keep the bucket away from you. A couple of things we like to show people. First and foremost, that bucket cannot hit you in the cab. So don't worry about it, you're safe. Now with that said, the material in the bucket is not secured in there. So that's why you want to be careful, because if you were to come forward fast and stop, the material may actually come out, may hit your windshield. The other piece is the bucket can absolutely hit the tracks. So this machine can dig all the way up, right up to your tracks. It can actually hit them. So you want to be careful. Anytime you get within a foot or two of your tracks, you see dirt moving, you're going to want to take your hands off and let us get you pushed out away further from your tracks. Now driving position for the excavator, you're going to have your boom raised up, your stick in so it's vertical, straight up and down, and then your bucket flat. So your teeth are horizontal, and you want that bucket about a foot or two above your tracks. The final piece is your swing. You want to be lined up straight over those tracks. So you're going to look out over your window and see if you're roughly straight with the left track that you're over. Now, parking position for the excavator, we generally want that same position. You're just going to set the bucket flat on the ground. Now let's take a look inside the excavator. Now, first and foremost, 3 points of contact getting into the equipment. So there's a step in between the track. You're going to step on the track. There's handlebars on both sides. Take your time getting up into the machine. You're going to have a seat. You're going to put your seat belt on. Next is the safety lock lever. Over on your left, you're going to see a little red knob, and there's a red bar going below that. That is basically the parking brake for the excavator. Eventually, you'll pull back on that little red knob. It's going to pop that red bar in front of the door. That means everything's live on the equipment. When that bar's down, everything's safe. Nothing's going to work in there at all. Eventually, your instructor will walk you through engaging that so everything's live on the equipment. Now for seat adjustments. There is an initial adjustment the instructor may make at the very base of the chair. That'll move the entire console forward. So there is a lever at the very bottom. We may latch and slide the entire thing forward or back. Next, over on the right, you've got something to just slide the seat. So there's a little lever on your right side that'll slide the seat forward or back. And then you've got an air ride adjustment in the center there that can raise the seat up or down. You've then got a tilt lever right above that that'll actually tilt the seat forward or back. And then finally, you've got a backrest adjustment on the back corner if you need to adjust your backrest up or down. Next, you've got your throttle over on your right. You're going to have a little dial with a min and a max. Eventually, you'll turn that all the way up to max. Now, the excavators do have an auto idle, so even if you do turn it up to max, you may not hear the engine come up right away. Don't worry about that. That's a fuel-saving feature built into the newest Komatsu equipment. Next, for your foot controls, first of all, you'll see 2 stationary pedals on each side. That's where your feet are going to rest. In the center, you've got your 2 track paddles. These are what will adjust and control each track. The right one's on your right track, left is for your left track. If you push forward on one, it'll push that side forward alone. So if you push right hand forward, it'll move the right track forward, pull back, it'll pull it back, and same with the left one. Left hand forward, push the left track forward, pull back on the left, it'll go backwards. We will use those together. Now in the center, you'll see those same track paddles are actually connected to foot controls. Now an expert would actually drive this thing with their feet, but we're gonna keep it just with your hands to make it easier. Now let's go to our joysticks. You've got your left and your right joystick. Left is your stick and swing, right is your boom and bucket. Stick and swing, boom and bucket, S's and B's. Let's go over those one at a time. On our right joystick, if you pull back on that right joystick, it's gonna raise the boom up. If you push forward on that right joystick, it's gonna bring the boom down. If you go to the right, it's gonna open the bucket. And if you go to the left with that right joystick, it's gonna close the bucket. Now let's go over to our left hand, our stick and swing. If you push forward on that left joystick, it's gonna extend the stick out. If you pull back on the left joystick, it's gonna pull the stick in. If you go left with that left joystick, it'll swing left. If you go right with that left joystick, it'll swing right. Keep in mind, there is no hard stop to that swing. So if you just wanna spin and do 360s out there, yee-haw, go for it. We do offer optional vomit insurance. So if you'd like to purchase that, please ask your instructor. Otherwise, we will not clean up after you. Finally is climate control. On the right display, you're gonna see some blue buttons. It's automatic climate control. You'll see right in the center there your temperature setting. Feel free to adjust the temperature up or down to whatever you're comfortable with. That's our Komatsu excavator. Okay, we're about ready to get you out with the equipment. First and foremost, make sure you filled out your liability waivers and turn those into your instructor. Next, if you have any physical or medical conditions, just tell your instructor afterwards. We can address any concerns you might have. The final certification test here shouldn't be too bad. It's about 400 questions, multiple choice. Make sure you have your number 2 pencils. Really, the test is not that bad, it's the essays. There are 5 essays, so take your time on those. Thank you for visiting Extreme Sandbox. Your experience is going to be memorable, exciting, and fun. Now get up there and dig it up.